So we know that Toronto, Peel and York regions have been in a modified stage 2 for some time now. And the province's message to people living in these hotspots: don't travel outside the region unless it is essential. And now some businesses outside the regions have even implemented locals-only policies, which bars people from entering their establishments if they are not from the area. And no doubt a bit of a difficult decision here for many restaurants who are weighing safety versus profit. City News reporter Tina Yazdani has been following the story. We've heard about a number of areas that have been doing this across Ontario. Tina, this is a difficult decision for everyone who's making it. Good morning.
Good morning, Mel. Absolutely, it is, especially for restaurants and establishments in regions that really depend on people from Toronto and the GTA. So wineries in Niagara, for instance, they can no longer rely on American tourists, and they depend on people from these hot zones to visit. And we spoke with a few after this weekend, and they say that despite the new messaging from the province, they are still seeing a ton of traffic from Toronto. But some restaurants in other regions and Niagara as well have decided to just not risk it at all. They've implemented that locals only policy that you were talking about there. And so if you're from Toronto or one of these hot zones, they might ask for your license before you enter. And some of them are going by more of an honor system, just asking you where you're from, hoping that you'll tell the truth. But it's definitely a difficult decision. Some of these restaurants are facing backlash for doing this. But you know what? They tell us that it's for the greater good. Not only will it protect staff and patrons, it'll also protect their community at large. Here's more from one restaurant owner we spoke with in Stratford.
How do people react when you have to turn them away because they're not local?
Some people are lovely. There's some folks that are very angry. Wow. I get how dare you? Don't you want my money? Is another line that I hear quite regularly. It's like, of course, but I also don't want a global pandemic to last longer than it has to. So I have to kind of balance those two things.
So that woman, Jessie Voteri, actually owns 4 restaurants in Stratford, and Stratford is a pretty big tourist destination for people from Toronto in normal times. Her restaurants are also pretty popular with out-of-town folks, so she is taking a hit, but she says it's worth it, Mel.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Stratford. I actually have family in Stratford right now, and it's difficult because they do rely on the dollars from people that are coming from places like Toronto. There are beautiful places and shops to go to, so I do feel for them to make that difficult decision. It's hard, especially like Niagara, as you said. People are going to the wineries and whatnot, so how do you balance that, the health versus the economics? Let's talk about the economics now. You know, this is something that people just really can't predict. These are struggling restaurants, so can you give us a bit of a sense of what they're dealing with right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, you know, we've spoken with some mayors from these cities, and they say, yeah, absolutely. They do wish that they could invite people from Toronto into their regions, but this is, again, for the greater good. Now, economists say while this is a short-term hit, in the longer term, it's actually for the best, because God forbid some of these other regions would have to go back a stage. They would have to then take a way more devastating hit to their economy if they had to go back to a modified stage 2, like we've seen in Toronto, York, and Peel. So really, in the long term, it's better to prevent more outbreaks in these regions, and that will also, of course, help with the economy, not having to shut indoor restaurants down. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. And of course, we know that all of these regions that are in a modified stage 2, we were speaking with the mayors in Peel yesterday. They're already hoping that after these 28 days, they can go back to stage 3. Of course, they're waiting to see if their numbers will stabilize, but they're very hopeful for that because businesses in these regions are once again struggling to survive, Mel.
Indeed, and we asked that question to Mayor John Tory, who joined earlier this morning, and, you know, for him, it was hard to predict, you know, even 10 days out, what it was going to look like when it came to case counts. So time will tell, and we do think about all of these businesses. If you can support locally, please do so. Tina, appreciate your time today. Citynews.ca for more. City News at 5 and 6 as well. Thank you.